planet's diverse, thriving ecosystems may seem like permanent fixtures, but they're actually vulnerable to collapse. Jungles can become deserts, and reefs can become lifeless rocks, even without cataclysmic events like volcanoes and asteroids. What makes one ecosystem strong and another weak in the face of change? The answer, to a large extent, is biodiversity. Biodiversity is built out of three intertwined features: ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. The more intertwining there is between these features, the denser and more resilient the weave becomes. Take the Amazon rainforest, one of the most biodiverse regions on Earth due to its complex ecosystems, huge mix of species, and the genetic variety within those species. Here are tangled liana vines, which crawl up from the forest floor to the canopy, intertwining with treetops and growing thick wooded stems that support these towering trees. Helped along by the vines, trees provide the seeds, fruits, and leaves to herbivores such as the tapir and the agouti, which disperse their seeds throughout the forest so they can grow. Leftovers are consumed by the millions of insects that decompose and recycle nutrients to create rich soil. The rainforest is a huge system filled with many smaller systems like this, each packed with interconnected species. Every link provides stability to the next, strengthening biodiversity's weave. That weave is further reinforced by the genetic diversity within individual species, which allows them to cope with changes. Species that lack genetic diversity due to isolation or low population numbers are much more vulnerable to fluctuations caused by climate change, disease, or habitat fragmentation. Whenever a species disappears because of its weakened gene pool, a knot is untied and parts of the net disintegrate. So, what if we were to remove one species from the rainforest? Would the system fall apart? Probably not. The volume of species, their genetic diversity, and the complexity of the ecosystems form such rich biodiversity in this forest that one species gap in the weave won't cause it to unravel. The forest can stay resilient and recover from change. But that's not true in every case. In some environments, taking away just one important component can undermine the entire system. Take coral reefs, for instance. Many organisms in a reef are dependent on the coral. It provides key microhabitats, shelter, and breeding grounds for thousands of species of fish, crustaceans, and mollusks. Corals also form interdependent relationships with fungi and bacteria. The coral itself is a loom that allows the tangled net of biodiversity to be woven. That makes coral a keystone organism, one that many others depend on for their survival. So what happens when destructive fishing practices, pollution, and ocean acidification weaken coral or even kill it altogether? Exactly what you might think. The loss of this keystone species leaves its dependents at a loss too, threatening the entire fabric of the reef. Ecosystem, species, and genetic diversity together form the complex tangled weave of biodiversity that is vital for the survival of organisms on Earth. We humans are woven into this biodiversity too. When just a few strands are lost, our own well-being is threatened. Cut too many links, and we risk unraveling it all. What the future brings is unpredictable, but biodiversity can give us an insurance policy, Earth's own safety net, to safeguard our survival.
Hi, it's Mr. Anderson, and this is AP Environmental Sciences, video 35. It's on the loss of biodiversity. Way up in northern Norway is the Svalbard Peninsula, and on there scientists built a giant seed vault. It's protecting the seeds of humanity, our crop seeds, into the future. They chose to put it there because it's protected against tectonic activities. It's really, really cold. And also as the sea levels rise, it's going to be protected as well. The idea was hundreds or thousands of years into the future, we could go there and grab seeds and then start growing those crops again. Unfortunately, we've already had to make withdrawals from that area. And the reason why is the war in Syria put put a lot of these drought-resistant crops at risk, and so they've had to take more seeds out and they've moved those to Lebanon. But it does kind of get at this idea of the importance of biodiversity. Biodiversity is not only species diversity, but it can be genes, species, especially our domesticated crops and livestock, and then ecosystems themselves. And they have value. They give us our resources, and they also do these ecosystem services. And they're at risk. We're seeing biodiversity loss all around the planet. The causes are habitat loss, invasive species, climate change. We also have overharvesting, and then finally pollution are all impacting biodiversity. And so it's led to conservation. What do we do first? We have to figure out where that biodiversity is being lost. We have to figure out the conservation status of these organisms or areas. And then finally, we can pass laws and treaties to try to preserve a lot of that biodiversity. And so again, why do we need biodiversity? It's where we get our food. It's how we filter our water, energy, medicine. We all get that from our environment. And again, our environment also does these ecosystem services. They keep our climate stable. They decompose material once it's died. They pollinate our crops. And so we need biodiversity on our planet for resources and to do these services. If we define what it is, it's simply a variety. Variety at the genetic level, at the species level, and at the ecosystems. And so those genes that organisms have, once the organism is gone or the gene is gone, it's gone forever. It's extinct. Species as well. These are all the fruits found in a certain area of the tropical rainforest, but also we're talking about the crops that we have. And so I think it used to be we had around 8,000 different types of apples that were being grown, and now it's 100. And if you look in your own supermarket, it's way less than that. And then it's ecosystem changes as well. Once an ecosystem is gone, coral reefs, for example, you can't build that back again. And so what is causing this biodiversity loss? Well, when I was trying to come up with a quick way for you to remember these 5 things, I came up with this mnemonic. And so if you think of the biodiversity COP, and if you think of high COP as a way to remember it, if we put those in order, habitat loss is the first big impact on biodiversity. So deforestation, when we're cutting down those rainforests and planting crops. Right here we're growing soybeans. This is looking from above where we used to have a tropical rainforest. We're reducing that diversity and we're replacing it with one simple crop. Invasive species, this is kudzu. It's a plant that was brought from Asia. These are the zebra mussels in the Great Lakes that they're really wreaking havoc. They came from the Mediterranean. We're also seeing climate change impacting biodiversity. So if we look at the polar bear, for example, will they go extinct? It's hard to tell, but if we look at all the areas where they used to do well, we're seeing a decrease in the optimal polar bear habitat. Also, over-harvesting. Humans have been harvesting animals for a long period of time. The dodo is extinct because we killed all of the dodos. And we're also seeing over-harvesting now, especially in our aquatic systems. And then we can have pollution. Pollution's impacting the environment as well. So if we look at that Deepwater Horizon explosion, that led to an oil spill, which is impacting biodiversity in the Gulf of Mexico, and it'll take us years to figure out how that impacts it. Now, this has been going on for a long period of time. Extinctions are a part of nature. And if we look back through the fossil record, we've seen 5 major mass extinctions over time, and they have different causes. But most scientists are pointing to right now as the 6th mass extinction. This is mass extinction caused by humans. We're seeing extinction rates that we've never seen before, biodiversity loss that we've never seen before, and its cause is us. And so how do we solve this problem? Well, the first step is to identify where the problem is. And so the IUCN, International Union for the Conservation of Nature, has been around for over half a century, and what they've done is come up with these different statuses. Extinct in the wild would be one where we maybe have them in a zoo, but they don't exist in the wild. Then we have critically endangered, endangered, and vulnerable. Then we have near threatened, and finally areas of least concern. And so if you go on Wikipedia, you can look up any animal or any plant, and it's going to tell you its conservation status. So for example, the whooping crane are endangered. The California condor is critically endangered. Humans, you can imagine, are an area of least concern. They've then created this red list where we look at how many of these species fall into these threatened or these red categories. If we look at mammals, almost 20% or over 20% are in this threatened kind of an area, and amphibians are really at risk. And so what do we do? Well, what we can do is pass laws. So in the US, we passed the Endangered Species Act in 1973 to protect species and the ecosystems on which they depend. And so it essentially is a list. So bald eagles are a classic example that were added to the endangered species list. And so there, I think, were around 500 breeding pairs in the lower 48, and now there's over 10,000. So once they recover, we remove them from that list. Grizzly bears were added. Their population is coming back. In Montana, there's a big debate right now over, do we remove them from the list or not? But it also has to be balanced with human resources as well. So logging, for example, can impact certain species that are going to be found on the endangered species list. We've also seen global changes. The Convention on Biological Diversity in 1992, all of the green countries here signed on that biodiversity is important, it has an economic import, and that we're going to try to protect it. But again, it's not legally binding, and so we're still seeing huge decreases in biodiversity. And it goes back to the first thing I talked about in this class, the idea that the planet supports society, but society is driven by economics. And so we're never going to see decreases in biodiversity loss until there's an economic incentive or a way to do that. And so did you learn the following? Could you pause the video at this point and fill in the blanks? Well, let me do that for you. Biodiversity has value. It's a variety in the genes, species, and ecosystems, again, especially the domestic ones that we need to survive. That loss is caused by high COP, so that's habitat loss, invasive species, climate change, overharvesting, and pollution. And then how do we solve this? Through conservation, we figure out the status of those organisms or maybe those ecosystems, and then we start to protect them through laws and treaties. So that's it, and it's also the last of the videos on AP Environmental Sciences, so I hope that was helpful.
Biodiversity. It represents the wealth of all biological resources available to us. Each species, no matter how big or small, has an important role to play in ecosystem. Various plants and animal species depend on each other for what each offers, and these diverse species ensures natural sustainability for all life forms. For instance, human beings are dependent on various plants and animals for their food, shelter, and clothes, and likewise many other species are dependent on each other for such purposes. Richness of biodiversity makes our planet fit for the survival of each of the species living here.
The main cause of the loss of biodiversity can be attributed to the influence of human beings on the world's ecosystem. In fact, human beings have deeply altered the environment and have modified the territory, exploiting the species directly.
Biodiversity depletion is a natural phenomenon, but the present levels of biodiversity depletion are many times higher than the natural rate. Recently, the levels of loss in biodiversity have started causing global concern.
Here are the major reasons that cause biodiversity loss. Overexploitation.
The exploitation of natural resources to the point of diminishing returns has significantly given rise to biodiversity loss. Activities such as overhunting, overfishing, overmining, and excessive logging have greatly reduced biodiversity levels.
Habitat loss. When a habitat is degraded or destroyed as a result of the natural or human activities such as earthquakes, land use, deforestation, or agriculture, biodiversity is lost as the ecological system supporting biological survival is taken away. Even if only a small portion of an ecosystem is destroyed, the entire system's balance becomes vulnerable. Human overpopulation.
Overpopulation has witnessed continued encroachment into frontier forest, heightened pollution, and destruction of natural ecosystems that has considerably contributed to the mass extinction of species. The number of threatened species persists to multiply worldwide, whereas some have completely gone extinct.
Climate change.
When climate change occurs, temperatures can increase dramatically. When temperature rises, many different changes can occur on Earth. It can result in more floods, droughts, or intense rain, as well as more frequent and severe heat waves.
Pollution.
The various forms of pollution including water pollution, soil pollution, air pollution, land pollution, and agricultural pollution simply destroy animal and plant habitats due to the toxic substances and chemicals released into the biological system, contributing to their eventual death.
Out of these causes, one that contributes the most damage to biodiversity is pollution, since it connects to the other major reasons of biodiversity depletion. We went to different places in our city to see if these activities that contribute to biodiversity loss are happening in our community.
So niadto mi different places sa Iligan, then first na mo giadtoan kay ang Rex Beach Resort. No, above ocean.
Hindi ka balo ang tao mo sa.
Daghang yung tao nga nag-happy-happy dito. Dayon, in the end, kay ang nakita lang dyan namo kay ang basura. Mga basura nga naglutaw-lutaw, then ang mga bata dito kay nagsalom-salom po.
Oh my God!
So, niadto mi paseyo, and then first time ko na dito, wonderful kayo kay there are many statues and ay kabayo, then ay kalasa, then apa jeep. Amo gi-check out ang beach, and then ang kanang reg sa sea, then makita mo dito mga basura.
Guys, ako na sa biodiversity loss, day.
Saan sa?
Biodiversity loss, day.
May ganahan mo lingkod diri na ang view kay puro trash. Ito, dulod kay siya do, mag-delete mo diri na. Amor, good na o. Nainapkin.
Nagto mi sa Kuan, Palao. Dito sa Palao Market. to sa bagsakan dapit. Dadto nakita ni nga grabe kahugaw. Unya bagsakanan to siya sa vegetables, mga fruits.
Hodod kay siya guys. Ang mga kilid dito sa market puno trash. Yes.
So ay pulo sa ani nga malata, di malata. Awang tubig guys, ipaawas rin nila. Hindi mo nakapuluhan at padulong.
Sayang ang water. Save water. Naibawal mangihi diri guys then nakalabay naglalaki na nangihi dito. Hoy, baboy!
Ala bastos lagi mo. Anong baboy man?
Hoy, baboy! Ayaw ilabay ang basura din. Oh my God! A girl! Look at those.
Nice Chucky, nice, no?
Anong baboy man gyud? Ano, grabe discriminating
baboy.
ka na sa animals.
Siya. You thought na limpyo kayong kanal, but no. Dang! It's dirty, y'all.
Well, hey. Hey,
It's
boys.
real.
Hey.
Dili ra sa Manila
Hindi siya
ang
kanal, day.
Dili kanal, basurahan
Hi,
eh.
siya, day. Wala na na-inform ng basurahan, day. Ah, no, it's plastic.
Burning of plastic.
My God.
Oh my God. Guys,
This is,
seriously?
this shit is getting real, day.
Oh my God. So, sa tanan namong nalakwan sa Iligan, small parts ito sa Iligan, but bisag asa jud na jud crashes everywhere. So, problema gyud kay ni siya sa among city. Most especially sa bigger cities pa.
We have seen many kanang marag evidences nga mga tao kay mga ugawan jud kaayo, walay disiplina. Then first of all jud na para maka-create ta og kanang maayo nga community, clean and green, and mot i-breathe ang air kay dapat we should start within ourselves.
Wag ni siya ang manifestation nga sa atong mga kanabitang ginabuhat nato. So kailangan ni siya nato i-fix kay maka-affect pa ni siya sa atong younger generations.
As humans, sa ato gyud mag-start ang change. Kay even sa school, di ba, makakita ta crashes everywhere, maskin sa ilalim sa lingkuranan, sa mga kilid, sa mga kanal.
As students, dapat kita ang unang take action because nakabaluta kanang we are educated. So, even if you think na kanang yung small things na gibuhat, why change? No, nadyo na siya change. We are gradually making a change or an impact on Mother Earth.
Sa mga tao nga sige og kuan, palabay basura, dili ka banon say biodegradable ug non-biodegradable. Pagsugod na mo og tuon unsa na siya kay kita ra gyapon pinuangan ni Mother Earth. Kabalo mo kita ra gyapon malisang aning atong kalibutan nga hugaw kaayo.
As mga people, di ba gitudloan naman tayo itong bata pa? Dapat kanang buhaton po nato kay sayang kaya itong gitunan kung dili nato buhat.
And dapat siga gid ato matas aning mga environmental issues kay ato man ni responsibility as humans. We are assigned by God to take care of this earth.
And then I hope that this message reaches to all the people who watch this. I hope that they would be concerned to our environment, be concerned to the people who live in that environment.
We humans have named ourselves Homo sapiens, meaning wise men. But is man really so wise? Over the years, we've been destroying our earth. Day by day, animals go extinct. Resources are being damaged. And we willingly covered our ears to Mother Nature's screams and closed our eyes to all of her help-wanted signs. That cannot be wisdom. Wisdom knows that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if we were wise, we would not be shocked if we see storms that are stronger than ever before, or more droughts, hurricanes, and wildfires, more pollution, more trees cut down, more diseases and habitat loss. Our world is getting worse than ever before, not because of being so-called wise men, but because of being hypocrites like every one of us. We humans can always save the world. Saving the world requires change, and change starts within our hearts. When enough people come together, we can recreate the world into a new era filled with love and connection. It is not too late to change. It is not too late to save our Earth.
Biodiversity is a term that represents the total variety of all life on Earth. That's a big thing to sum up. Thousands of different wild habitats, millions of different species, billions of different individuals, and the trillions of different characteristics they all have. The total biodiversity of our planet is immense. Which is a good thing, because the more biodiversity, the more secure all life on Earth is, including ourselves. Only when life is at its most varied, vigorous, biodiverse, can we hope to thrive. We may not know it, but we need towering forests across 1/3 of the land surface to lock away carbon and keep the climate stable. We need millions of pollinators and billions of soil organisms and megatons of plankton to keep the food we eat in supply. We need strange plants deep in jungles to create our medicines, and coral reefs and mangrove swamps to protect the coasts we depend upon. Our planet's biodiversity provides all the things we need for free. But it will only do so if there's lots of it, and at the moment it's under attack. In the last 50 years, our activities have dramatically reduced biodiversity across the globe. We've snuffed out habitats, reduced populations of wild animals by 60%, and even driven whole species extinct. The number of lions in Africa has dropped by 65%. The number of individual flying insects in Europe has dropped by 75%. The number of bluefin tuna in the Pacific has dropped by 95%. Biodiversity is dropping everywhere and fast. This is catastrophic for nature and therefore ourselves. We talk about climate change a lot, but biodiversity loss is as important an issue. How do we stop this loss of life? How do we ensure that biodiversity, our planet's vital statistic, begins to increase again? In fact, we already know exactly what to do. Follow Our Planet. Visit ourplanet.com and watch the series on Netflix.